In the Soviet Union, there were more than 40 closed administrative territorial formations, known as Zetos, which did not appear on any official map of the world, and their residents were bound by non-disclosure agreements regarding state secrets. For a period of 25 years, by 1980, up to 20% of the USSR's gross domestic product was spent on defense needs, allowing for the creation of technologies that outpaced Western counterparts by decades, including developments in psychotronics and infrasonic influence. One of the most guarded secrets was Item 112B, a mobile installation capable of generating low-frequency oscillations that induced uncontrollable panic, terror, and temporary paralysis of willing humans without firing a single shot. The cold autumn of 1984 shrouded the rocky shores of a remote island in the Barents Sea in thick fog, where a top-secret NATO tracking station was located, intercepting signals from the Northern Fleet. The GRU command understood that a direct assault would lead to the destruction of secret encryption machines by the enemy, so a Special Forces unit under the code name Shadow entered the fray. On board a modified diesel submarine, moving in complete silence thanks to an experimental polymer hull coating, was the Voice of the Wind installation. This was the very stealth weapon that was legendary in tight KGB circles. Colonel Viktor Sokolov, who headed the operation, knew that today the history of warfare would change forever. Although it would never be written about in textbooks, the installation was a complex system of emitters operating at a frequency of 7 Hz. A frequency that resonates with the rhythms of the human brain and causes a sense of imminent doom. When the submarine halted a kilometer from the shore, the operators began warming up the device's vacuum tubes. A tense silence reigned inside the compartments, interrupted only by the subtle hum of the coolers. At the NATO base, life went on as usual. Duty officers drank coffee, and radars monotonically scanned the horizon, seeing no threat. At 2:15 local time, the Voice of the Wind was activated at low power. At first, the soldiers at the base felt slight dizziness and unexplained nausea, which they dismissed as fatigue. However, 5 minutes later, the power was increased, the air seemed to become thick and viscous, and a pressure appeared in their ears that was impossible to relieve. Animals on the island, birds and small rodents, were the first to begin leaving their burrows in panic, throwing themselves into the icy water. The people, however, were trapped in their own minds. Experienced American Marines, who had gone through hotspots, suddenly began to see shadows in the corners of rooms. It seemed to them that the walls were closing in and the floor was slipping from under their feet. One of the sentries, dropping his rifle, huddled in a corner of the barracks, covering his head with his hands and screaming that the sky was falling to the earth. At that moment, the GRU Spetsnaz began their landing. They used special helmets with active noise cancellation and built-in white noise generators, which partially neutralized the effects of infrasound. Moving like ghosts through the fog, the fighters penetrated the facility without meeting any resistance. The security system, equipped with the most modern motion sensors, was useless, as the operators in the control center lay on the floor in the fetal position, unable even to look up at the monitors. This was the perfect soft power. The enemy was neutralized, not by bullets, but by the fundamental laws of physics turned against human biology. Sokolov walked through the corridors of the station, observing a surreal picture. People armed to the teeth had turned into frightened children, whose brains simply refused to process reality. All encryption notebooks, access codes, and the latest samples of communication equipment were seized within 40 minutes. The capture group acted with surgical precision, packing the documentation into airtight containers. Before leaving, Sokolov ordered the installation to be turned off. As soon as the infrasonic influence ceased, a deathly silence fell over the base. People gradually began to come to their senses, but they were seized by deep apathy and depression, a side effect of the abrupt cessation of resonance. None of them could clearly explain what had happened. When reinforcements arrived from NATO headquarters a few hours later, they found the garrison in a state of severe psychic shock. The official report stated that a release of rare natural gas from underground cavities had occurred on the island, causing mass hallucinations. The Soviet side, of course, maintained complete silence. The voice of the wind installation was dismantled and transported to one of the underground bunkers in the Urals, and all participants in the operation received state awards by closed decrees of the Presidium of the Supreme Soviet. This weapon proved its effectiveness, showing that the most terrible battle is the one a person loses inside their own mind, without even seeing the enemy. Since then, such technologies have been deeply mothballed, becoming part of black projects waiting for their time in the depths of secret archives, where time has frozen at the mark of top secret, of special importance.